Once upon a time, in the heart of Abuja's most prestigious residential enclave, Royal Vine Estate, lived a man who had everything. Power, private jets. But none of it mattered anymore. His name was Chike Obi, the founder of Obi Group, a real estate empire with footprints in 6 countries. Chike had made his first billion by age 30. His name rang out in boardrooms from Lagos to London. His face appeared on the covers of financial magazines. But beneath the designer suits and media praise was a man deeply tired. Tired of fake smiles. Tired of gold diggers. Tired of being loved for what he had, not who he was. That night, Chike stood alone on the balcony of his glass mansion, staring down at the estate his company had built from scratch. Every light in the neighborhood gleamed like polished marble. Children laughed in courtyards. Lovers took strolls. Music floated faintly from garden parties. He had built this world. Yet he didn't belong to it. He sipped his wine slowly, his phone buzzing beside him with another invitation to another event full of fake conversations and ulterior motives. Then he remembered his grandfather's words. To find the heart of a person, become someone who has nothing to offer but yourself. That night, Chike made a decision. One that would shock even his closest allies. The next morning, Chike summoned Hugo, his most trusted cousin and confidant, the only family member who knew about the heartache he carried quietly. "Hugo," he said calmly, "I want to disappear." Hugo blinked. "Bro, what are you talking about?" "I want to live inside this estate as a gateman." Hugo dropped his coffee. "You want to what?" "I've built palaces. Everyone bows when I enter. But not one person has ever looked at me and seen me. The man. Not the bank account. Not the brand. Just me. I want to find someone who can love me without any of this." Chike gestured around the luxury sitting room. Hugo tried to speak, then sighed. "You're serious?" "As serious as the loneliness that's been eating me alive." 2 weeks later, Chike was no longer the billionaire in Brioni suits. He was Obina, the new gateman assigned to House 24B in Royal Vine Estate. Gone were his Rolex and private chef. In their place, a dull green uniform, a tiny guard post beside the electric gate, and a creaky single mattress in the servants' quarters. A battered thermos replaced his wine glass. And his daily meals were plain rice or beans from the estate cook. At first, it was amusing. Then it was sobering. By the 3rd day, Chike realized something terrifying. He was invisible. Residents barely glanced at him. Some barked orders at him without greeting. Children threw wrappers near his feet. And the delivery men, even they ignored him like he didn't exist. He was used to VIP lounges and being saluted by board members. People didn't even see him. But in that invisibility, he found something real. One afternoon, while wiping dust off the estate gate, he heard soft footsteps approaching. A young woman in a blue uniform, clearly one of the domestic staff, stopped in front of him, holding a lunch cooler. "You've been standing in the sun all day," she said quietly. "Take this." Chike blinked. "Sorry? For me?" She nodded, placing the cooler in his hand. "Jollof and plantain. You remind me of my elder brother. He died doing guard work." Before Chike could respond, she was already walking away, back toward one of the staff buildings. He opened the cooler. The scent of pepper and spice hit him. And suddenly, his eyes stung with something he hadn't felt in years. Gratitude. Not for the food, but for the fact that someone, even for a moment, had seen him. That evening, as the estate darkened and porch lights flickered on, Chike sat in his tiny post, legs crossed, notebook open on his lap. He began to write. Day 3. I have been called, "Hey you," 6 times. 2 residents asked if I was a replacement or permanent. 1 woman said I looked too clean for a gateman. Only 1 person, the maid, offered kindness. The rest see right through me. He paused, then added. And yet I've never felt more alive. But the universe wasn't done testing him. The very next morning, a black SUV screeched to a halt outside the estate. A young woman in designer sunglasses stepped out, her heels clicking like gunshots on the driveway. Chike stood, ready to open the gate as she approached. She carried 2 shopping bags and a sour expression. As he moved to take the bags and greet her, she recoiled. "Don't touch me," she snapped. "I'm just trying to help, Ma. Do you know how much these bags cost? Your sweat alone could ruin them." Chike froze. Her voice was loud enough to draw attention. "Gatemen like you think being nice will make you important. Let me remind you, you're staff. Stick to the gate." Without another word, she stormed past him. And Chike stood there, stunned, fists clenched, not because of the insult, but because her face reminded him of every woman who'd once smiled at him when they thought he was rich. But now he was nothing. And so they treated him like nothing. That night, as he lay awake on the narrow mattress, Chike whispered to himself, "This is only the beginning." He had come here to suffer, to be tested, to be unseen. But what he truly wanted, more than answers, more than validation, was this: to find someone who would choose him, not his wealth. And if that meant spending months at the gate, being humiliated, mocked, and ignored, then so be it. Because maybe, just maybe, somewhere inside this estate, was the person who'd finally see Obinna the man, not Chike the billionaire. The next morning, Royal Vine Estate yawned itself into another day of quiet luxury. Gardeners trimmed hedges with military precision. Nannies pushed strollers past manicured lawns. Music hummed from balconies. But at the gate of House 24B, Chike, still Obinna to the world, sat on his small stool, watching everything. He had barely slept. The words from the woman in sunglasses still rang in his head. "Stick to the gate." Her voice had sliced deeper than he expected. Not because he cared about her opinion, but because it confirmed what he feared. People didn't just ignore him. They despised him. Just as he bent over to adjust his security boots, a loud pop cracked through the air like a gunshot. Then the unmistakable hiss of deflation. Tires. Chike shot up. From the far end of the estate lane, he saw a silver sedan wobble violently, then jerk to the right and screech to a halt. The rear tire was completely flat. He jogged toward it out of instinct. No cameras, no audience, just action. Inside the driver's seat, a woman leaned her head against the wheel, eyes shut tight. Her breathing looked uneven. "Madam?" Chike asked, tapping the window. She blinked, then slowly opened the door. Her face was striking, not model perfect, but tired beautiful. The kind of beauty that wasn't trying. The kind that told stories. Her voice was soft. "I'm fine. And this tire," she pointed, "has been threatening me since Monday." Chike smiled faintly. "I can help you change it, if you have a spare." She hesitated. "You know how to change tires?" "I've done worse," he said with a shrug. She gave a half laugh, stepped aside, and popped the trunk. Within minutes, Chike had rolled up his sleeves and crouched by the deflated tire, loosening bolts like a mechanic on autopilot. Sweat trickled down his neck, dust clung to his uniform, but his hands worked fast. The woman stood nearby, watching him, first with polite silence, then with something else. Curiosity. "You're new here," she said after a while. Chike nodded. "Obinna. I was transferred here from the Lecky property." She smiled, brushing a loose braid from her cheek. "Adora. I stay in Block C, Apartment 9. I work in HR." He paused. "Nice to meet you, Madam Adora." "Don't call me Madam. It makes me feel like my auntie." Chike laughed, a real one. The first since he started this charade. As he tightened the last bolt on the spare tire, she walked closer, hands on hips. "You're surprisingly good at this, Obinna." He stood, brushing dust off his knees. "Thank you. Just doing my job." "No," she said. "Your job is to guard gates. But you chose to help. That means something." Her words surprised him. So did the way she looked at him. She didn't look through him. She looked at him. A beat of silence passed. Then she reached into her car, pulled out a water bottle, and handed it to him. "You look like you could use this." Chike accepted it. "You don't have to." "I know I don't," she said. "But I want to." That made all the difference. Later that afternoon, Chike sat at his post, sipping the last of the water, watching people pass. Some nodded at him. Some didn't. But he didn't care. Because for the first time since he became Obinna, Someone had seen him without suspicion, pity, or contempt. And not just anyone. Eudora. That evening, Hugo called. Bro. How's it going? Chike smiled into the burner phone. I changed a woman's tire. Hugo snorted. Ah, so you're officially useful now. She gave me water, Chike added. Wait, that's big. Was she fine? She was different. Hugo's tone sharpened. Different how? She didn't talk down to me. She listened. Hugo whistled. Sounds like we've met our first test subject. Chike went quiet. I'm not ready to test her, he said softly. I want to know her first. The next day, Eudora passed by the gate again. She wore a teal blazer, heels clicking lightly as she walked. Chike rose halfway to greet her. She paused. Obina, she said, good morning. Good morning, Ma. I mean Eudora. She smiled. You remembered. Then she did something unexpected. She leaned against the gate post and began unwrapping a meat pie. Breakfast? She offered. Chike blinked. For me? No, she said sarcastically, for the other gateman standing beside you. He laughed again, and this time it echoed. Over the next week, these little encounters continued. Morning greetings. Shared bread. Teasing jokes. Side glances. He noticed how she always held a hardcover notebook in one arm, not a tablet like other residents. She noticed how he always read old books during breaks. Things fall apart one day, man's search for meaning another. Where did you go to school? She asked one morning. Chike froze. He'd prepared for this. School of hard knocks, he joked. Street life. She raised an eyebrow but didn't press. Well, you read like someone who's been taught. He shrugged. Maybe I just learned from watching. But Chike knew it was only a matter of time before this warm bubble popped. Every moment with Eudora brought joy, but also dread. Because eventually, the truth would come knocking. He wasn't just Obina, the gateman. He was Chike Obi, billionaire developer, owner of this entire estate, and the man who had built the very house Eudora lived in. And if she ever found out, would she still smile at him? Would she still share breakfast? Would she still look at him the same way? That night, he wrote in his notebook again. Day 10. Her name is Eudora. Her eyes are tired but kind. She offered me water and meat pie, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. I don't know what this is, but I feel alive. He paused, then added, for the first time in years, I don't feel alone. Another Sunday dawned over Royal Vine Estate, the kind of day where luxury hung in the air like perfume. Joggers paced the quiet lanes, drivers washed SUVs with military precision, and housekeepers swept invisible dust from doorsteps. At the main gate of Block C, Chike, still hidden beneath his Obina disguise, was doing what he had come to do best. Observe. Eudora hadn't passed by yet, which was unusual. She normally left around 7:45 a.m. for church, always alone, always with her notebook tucked neatly under one arm and a calm smile that greeted him like clockwork. But today, nothing. He checked his watch. 8:13 a.m. He was about to return to polishing the steel gate when two voices drifted toward him, high-pitched, nasal, and confident in their power. It was Mrs. Onari and Binta, the two women everyone in the estate either feared, flattered, or avoided. Dressed in flamboyant lace and dripping with jewelry, they clicked down the sidewalk like they owned the entire postcode. They didn't acknowledge him as they passed, but they spoke like he wasn't there. Have you seen Eudora lately? Binta asked, sipping a pink smoothie. Mrs. Onari scoffed. That woman? Still single. Still acting like her Excel sheets make her better than anyone. My driver said she was chatting with the gateman last week. Binta gasped. This one? They both turned toward Chike briefly, then giggled. She should be careful, Mrs. Onari added with a smirk, before she ends up pregnant for a security man. These Abuja men come in uniforms now. They laughed again, loud, empty laughs, and strutted away, heels tapping like gunshots. Chike clenched his jaw. His hands curled into fists by instinct. But he said nothing. Not because he was weak, but because he understood now. This was the world Adaora lived in. A world of judgmental whispers and elite pride, where someone like Obina the Gateman was seen as filth, and a woman like Adaora was seen as foolish for even saying hello. An hour later, Adaora finally appeared, holding her heels in one hand and walking barefoot. Chaik stood. She looked tired. Her eyes were slightly red. "Morning," he said carefully. "Morning," she replied, managing a smile. "Power went out. My son couldn't sleep." Chaik's brain froze. She caught his expression and chuckled. "Yeah. Surprise. I have a 7-year-old. Chaik exhaled, smiling. "I thought you were hiding something huge." "I am," she said, deadpan. "He steals plantain when I'm not looking." They both laughed. Then she added softly, "But he's my whole heart." They sat on opposite sides of the estate fence for the next 15 minutes, she with her heels dangling from her fingers, he with his notepad open. And they talked. About books. About her job in HR. About how her ex left when their son was just 3. About how hard it was to raise a child in a place where people thought money replaced manners. She said something that stuck with him. "People in this estate act like kindness is beneath them. But I'd rather be alone with peace than surrounded by wolves in lace." Chaik smiled at that. And for the first time, he let a truth slip from his lips. "You're stronger than you know." But just when the moment felt perfect, a sleek Lexus curved around the bend and parked roughly in front of the gate. From it stepped a storm in stilettos. Fierce. Designer head to toe. The daughter of a senator. And, unbeknownst to Adaora, the woman Chaik's family had been trying to force him to marry for over a year. Amara looked at Chaik with disgust. "You," she snapped, "what are you still doing here? Didn't I tell you to stop loitering near women?" Chaik raised his brows. "Ma, I work here." "Then act like it," she barked. "This is a residential estate, not a romance novel." She turned to Adaora without even softening her tone. "You're chatting with the help now?" she asked coldly. "Interesting taste." Adaora stood slowly, brushing imaginary dust from her dress. Her voice was calm, but her words were sharp. "First of all, he's not the help. He's a person. With a name. Maybe if you tried using it, you'd find your manners." Amara's nostrils flared. Chaik's heart stopped. "So did time." "I don't know who you are," Adaora continued, stepping forward, "but I know arrogance when I see it. If you can't speak with respect, don't speak at all." Amara glared, then scoffed. "You'll regret this," she hissed, before striding off like a storm cloud in a lace gown. Adaora turned to Chaik. "You okay?" Chaik nodded. Slowly. He was more than okay. He was stunned. Someone had defended him. In public. At the gate. Adaora exhaled. "Some people are born with privilege. Others are born with decency." And with that, she turned and walked off, barefoot, proud, and radiant in her own quiet rebellion. That night, Chaik couldn't sleep. His notebook remained open for hours. He finally wrote. Day 17. Today, she stood up for me. In front of Amara, the very woman my mother says I should marry. Adaora doesn't know who I am. And still, she chose me. Not because I was rich, but because it was right. He stared at the page for a long time. Then added, I am falling. God help me. I think I'm falling for her. Morning light poured over Royal Vine Estate like a golden veil, warming the marble pavements and bougainvillea hedges. But Chaik didn't notice any of it. He was already at his post, earlier than usual, uniform tucked, boots clean, back straight, watching the road where Adaora usually walked with her heels in one hand and fire in her spirit. But today, she wasn't alone. Trailing beside her, dragging a Spider-Man backpack that looked too big for his tiny frame, was a boy. Brown skin. Neatly trimmed hair. Nose slightly runny. Eyes full of questions. Good morning, Adaora called as they passed. Chaik rose. Good morning. She slowed. This is Ibuka, she said, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. My reason for breathing. Ibuka, say good morning to the gate uncle. Ibuka blinked at Chaik. Then mumbled, Good morning, sir. Chaik squatted to his level, smiling. Good morning, champ. Off to school? The boy nodded, still half shy. He's nervous, Adora said. It's his first week at the new school. Why nervous? Chaik asked him gently. Ibuka shrugged. Because the other kids have two parents. Adora's face tightened. Chaik's smile didn't waver. I'll tell you a secret, he whispered. Batman only had one parent, and he still saved the whole city. Ibuka blinked. Then, a small, unexpected grin. Adora laughed softly. You've just made my morning easier. Just doing my job, Chaik replied, but they both knew he wasn't talking about gatekeeping. The rest of the day passed quietly, but Chaik's mind kept returning to the boy's eyes. They were curious, fragile, brave. He remembered his own childhood, growing up with a mother who sold fabrics in Oddbeat Market and a father who died too early. There were days he didn't eat until sunset, and nights he slept listening to generator hums from wealthier homes, wishing for something more. He knew that look in Ibuka's eyes. The look of someone learning to be strong too soon. Later that evening, Chaik sat at his post reading an old copy of The Little Prince. The book was worn, its pages annotated, a relic from his university days in Paris. He never expected to see it again, but one of his staff had recently found it in an old donation box. As he read, he noticed small footsteps approaching. It was Ibuka, still in uniform, dragging his backpack like a tired soldier. Where's your mum? Chaik asked gently. She's in a meeting on her laptop, Ibuka said, fidgeting. She said I could play outside. Chaik nodded, then gestured to the bench near the gate. Want to sit? Ibuka hesitated, then shuffled over. After a beat of silence, he pointed to the book in Chaik's hand. What's that? A story. About a little boy who travels across planets. Can he fly? In his own way, yes. Ibuka's eyes lit up. Read it. Chaik smiled, flipping to the first page. Once upon a time, he began, on a tiny planet not much bigger than a house, there lived a boy who loved sunsets. For the next 20 minutes, Chaik read aloud. Ibuka leaned closer. Every sentence made the world at the gate disappear. And for the first time, Chaik wasn't a billionaire in disguise. He wasn't a man running from loneliness. He was just someone reading to a boy who needed a story. Adora appeared from the corner of the block, looking exhausted but holding a small food flask. She stopped when she saw them, her son curled beside the gatekeeper, listening to The Little Prince like it was gospel. She didn't interrupt. Just watched. Eyes soft. After a moment, she approached quietly. Sorry to interrupt the universe, she said playfully. Ibuka turned. Mummy. He was reading the flying boy story. Adora smiled. I see. But now it's time to shower and eat. Ibuka stood and whispered to Chaik. Can you read more tomorrow? Chaik nodded solemnly. Tomorrow we'll meet the fox. The boy beamed and ran off. Adora lingered. She handed Chaik the flask. Fried yam and egg. Thank you for being kind to him. You didn't have to. I know, she cut in. But I wanted to. She looked at him again, differently this time. As if seeing something she hadn't before. Not just kindness. But then she walked away. And Chaik, holding a warm flask in one hand and a worn-out book in the other, realized something terrifying. He didn't just like her anymore. He was beginning to need her. That night, Yugo called. Bro, update. Chaik exhaled. I read a book to her son. Silence. Then laughter. Wait, you're doing bedtime stories now? Chaik didn't laugh. She trusts me. The boy likes me. It's getting dangerous. Yugo's voice lowered. You're getting attached. I already am. In his notebook that night, Chaik wrote. Day 23. Ibuka reminds me of myself. Adora stronger than she knows. I thought I was pretending, but maybe the gate isn't the disguise. Maybe it's the only place I've ever been seen. And beneath it, in shaky handwriting. Tomorrow, I'll meet the fox. The next few days blurred together. To the outside world, Chaik, still wearing the identity of Obina the Gateman, was just a quiet figure at the entrance of Block C. To Adora's son, Ibuka, he was Uncle Book Reader. To Adora? Even she didn't know yet. But the way her eyes lingered, the way her steps always slowed when she passed the gate, it said everything words couldn't. And still, Chaik said nothing. Not because he didn't want to tell her, but because timing was everything. And the world was watching. It started on a Wednesday. Late afternoon. Clouds hanging low. The kind of stillness that makes birds stop singing. Chaik was reading under the security lamp when the estate's silence shattered. A scream. Then another. And then smoke. Climbing from the back of Block E. Chaik dropped his book, heart racing. By the time he reached the source, chaos had bloomed like wildfire. A kitchen gas cylinder had exploded in one of the service quarters. Flames licked the side walls. A nanny wailed as people ran in all directions. But one sound sliced through the noise like glass. "My baby! He's inside!" A woman screamed, clawing toward the building, restrained by a driver. "Second floor. My son is up there." No one moved. The security supervisors stood frozen. Even the firefighters hadn't arrived yet. But Chaik? He ran. Up the first stairwell, smoke clawing his eyes. Past the second floor, coughing. Then he heard it. A child's cry. Behind a half-closed door, smoke pouring through the gap. Chaik pushed inside without thinking. He dropped to the floor, crawling on elbows. The heat was unbearable. A small figure huddled by the bed, coughing violently. Chaik scooped him up, wrapped him in his uniform jacket, and staggered out, barely able to see. By the time they emerged, the crowd had doubled. Phones out. Everyone watching. He handed the child to the paramedics. And collapsed to his knees. Face black with soot. Chest heaving. Uniform torn. But alive. The next morning, he was on every resident WhatsApp group. The new gateman at Block C ran into the fire before the fire service even showed up. "I heard he used to be military." "No. I think he's just one of those educated ones doing this work for visa plans. His name is Obina. My housegirl says he reads French books." Adora's been spending a lot of time near that gate lately. That last message, it spread like wildfire. By Friday, the whispers had started. At the mini-mart near the estate playground, two women in silk bonnets exchanged words as Aora picked up cereal for Ibuka. "She's too friendly with that Gateman. You know how single women get anything with a pulse. She should know her place. That one's probably trying to trap her with a pregnancy." Aora said nothing. She heard every word. But she said nothing. Not because she was weak, but because gossip always dies when you stop feeding it. Still, when she got home, her hands trembled as she unlocked the door. That evening, Chaik sat at his post, still sore from the burns, bandage peeking out from his sleeve. Aora approached slowly. She looked at him. Really looked at him. "You could have died." He smiled faintly. But the child didn't. Aora nodded. Then she whispered, "They're talking, you know." "I figured," Chaik replied. Silence stretched. Then she said something he didn't expect. "They talked when I was pregnant without a husband. They talked when I raised Ibuka alone. If they're talking again, it means I'm still alive." And just like that, Chaik's heart cracked open, quietly, without drama. Because this woman, she didn't just survive fire. She survived people. The next morning, Hugo called. "Bro, you made the estate WhatsApp group. Video and everything." "I didn't do it for praise," Chaik said. "I know. But you know what's next, right?" "What?" "The rumors. The judgment. The estate elite doesn't like when one of their own talks to the help." Chaik was quiet. Then he said, "Let them hate me." Hugo exhaled. "You're in too deep." "I know." That night, Aora didn't go home immediately after work. She stood by the gate, holding a warm takeaway bag. "For the hero who smells like smoke," she said lightly. He opened it, spicy jollof rice, goat meat, fried plantain, and a can of malt. She sat beside him on the wooden bench. They ate in silence. And then, without looking at him, she asked, "Obina, what did you do before this job?" Chaik froze. He chewed slowly, swallowed hard, then gave the answer he had practiced for weeks. "I used to build houses." She turned to him, smiling. "I believe you." That night, in his notebook he wrote, Day 29. Today she didn't defend me. She sat with me. And that's louder than defense. There is a kind of love that doesn't announce itself. It just stays. And then, at the bottom, they can whisper. But her silence is the loudest thing I've ever heard. It was only a matter of time. 31 days. That's how long Chaik Obi had managed to disappear into the skin of Obina the Gateman, living in a servant's room, eating from takeaway packs, reading books under estate security lights, and waiting for Ada Ora's laughter like it was morning prayer. But no one stays hidden forever. Not when your last name is Obi. Not when your disappearance makes headlines in business circles. And especially not when your parents are Chief and Lady Obi, the kind of old money elite who believed legacy was sacred and personal happiness a luxury the family couldn't afford. On a Thursday morning at precisely 9:04 a.m., the storm arrived. Not with thunder, but with a black Range Rover and a gloved driver. The gates of Royal Vine Estate creaked open. No one knew the car, but its license plates sent a ripple through the guards at the main entrance. OBJ0010. Only one man used that plate. Chief Emeka Obi, the father of Chaik, the architect of power. Chaik was at his post, wiping down the railings, when he saw the car approaching. He didn't flinch, didn't blink, but something in his stomach turned. The vehicle rolled to a stop 10 meters away. The back window slid down with slow, deliberate grace. Inside sat a man carved from politics, money, and expectation. Sharp agbada, silver beard, cold, calculating eyes. "Get in," the man said. Chaik obeyed. Inside the car, silence reigned. No greetings, no affection. Just disappointment, heavy, old, and weaponized. "You have been playing masquerade with your life," Chief Obi said. Chaik didn't respond. "You disappeared. Cancelled meetings. Walked away from your company. Your name is on investment documents worth billions, and you're out here changing tires for single mothers." Chaik turned to face him. "I needed time." "No," his father said. "You wanted drama." Then, the dagger. "We've spoken to the Adanugas. Amara is ready. The wedding can happen before Q4. Chaik's heart went still. The woman who saw his position, not his person. The one Ada Ora had clashed with at the gate. The one his mother kept on speed dial. "I'm not marrying Amara," he said quietly. "You don't get to decide that," Chief Obi replied coldly. When Chaik returned to his post 2 hours later, Ada Ora noticed his eyes were different. She didn't ask. He didn't explain. But he looked older, like something inside him had broken or hardened. She offered Puff Puff and Zobo. He accepted both, but said very little. Later that night, he wrote in his notebook. Day 31. The world I ran from just knocked on the gate. And I opened it. My father wants Amar. My silence was a rebellion. But now, it feels like betrayal, Ada Ora. Back at the Obi mansion, Chief and Lady Obi sat in their private lounge, their empire stretching out before them in properties, headlines, and polished furniture. Lady Obi sipped wine. "He's in love with the woman," she said flatly. Chief Obi grunted. "It's not love. It's weakness. A distraction. She's a single mother. She'll anchor him to struggle. Then we make sure she disappears," Lady Obi said, eyes glittering. And with that, a new chapter began. Not one Chaik would write, but one that would be written against him. The next morning, Ada Ora received a visitor at her door. A well-dressed woman. Late 50s. Class in her posture. Ice in her tone. "Good morning," she said coolly. "May I speak to you?" Ada Ora nodded slowly. "Who are you?" "I'm Chaik's mother." Ada Ora's eyes widened. "Chaik. You know him as Obina," Lady Obi said. "But that's not his name. Not his life. And not your future." Ada Ora stood frozen in the hallway. "I came here to thank you," Lady Obi continued. "You've played your part. It's time to let him go." "I don't understand," Ada Ora said, her voice brittle. "Yes, you do," Lady Obi said, pulling a white envelope from her clutch. "Take this. It's more than you'll make in 5 years." Ada Ora didn't take the envelope. She didn't move. But her eyes burned. "You think you can buy everything," she whispered. Lady Obi smiled. We bought the silence of politicians, judges, and companies. Do you think you're harder? Adeora stepped back and closed the door without another word. That night, Chike waited at the gate. But Adeora didn't come. Not even Ibuka passed by. The silence was heavier than usual. He waited until the estate dimmed into night. And still, nothing. Back in his room, he opened his notebook. But didn't write. For the first time in 32 days, he had no words. Just a question ringing in his head. What if I've already lost her? The silence lingered. A day passed. Then 2. Then 3. No morning greetings. No puff-puff. No Ibuka running with crayon on his fingers. No Adeora. Nothing. Chike, still wearing the name Obina like a chain, waited each morning like a man in a confessional. But the gate stayed closed. By the 4th day, he couldn't take it anymore. He took off the uniform. Wore a plain white t-shirt and jeans. No security boots. No radio. Just him. Chike Obi. He walked to her door. Heart pounding like war drums. He knocked. No answer. He knocked again. The door opened slowly. Adeora stood there. Beautiful. Wounded. Her eyes said everything before her lips moved. You lied to me, she said softly. Chike froze. My son talks about you like you're a superhero, she continued. He wanted you to read again. He thought we were your friends. Chike opened his mouth. Then closed it. I didn't lie about how I felt, he said. You lied about who you were. She said it like a knife. Not in rage, but in heartbreak. I wanted something real, Chike said. Everywhere I go, people treat me like an ATM. Or a trophy. Or a business opportunity. No one ever asks about me. Not Chike Obi the CEO. Me. Adeora's jaw tightened. So you dressed as a gateman? What is this, a reality show? A test? No. I wasn't testing you. I was trying to find peace. She looked at him then. A long, hard look, like she was searching for something. And not finding it. You should have told me the moment we mattered. I was scared you'd disappear. But I disappeared anyway, she said. Didn't I? Silence. Then she asked, was anything real? Chike stepped forward. Everything. Every single moment. The meat pie. The book. The boy. You. But you gave me the version of you you thought I could handle, she said. You never gave me the chance to know the truth. Chike's voice cracked. I'm sorry. She nodded slowly. You're not the first man who's left me with silence. But I thought you were the first one who wouldn't lie. Then, quietly, without slamming, without yelling, she closed the door. This time, it didn't feel like rejection. It felt like grief. Chike stood there for a long time. Long enough for a neighbor to pass and raise an eyebrow. Long enough for Ibuka to peek from the window and quickly disappear. Long enough to realize he had broken what he came here to build. That night, back in his servant quarters, the billionaire with the designer suits and offshore assets sat on a bare mattress, knees drawn to chest. He didn't call Hugo. He didn't open his laptop. He didn't touch his food. He just stared at his notebook. Then finally wrote, Day 36. The truth has been spoken. And I'm still not sure who I am when I'm not pretending. She didn't slam the door. But she closed it. And sometimes that's worse. Meanwhile, across town, in the Obi mansion, Chief and Lady Obi were celebrating. She didn't take the envelope, Lady Obi admitted, swirling her wine. But she stepped away, Chief Obi said. Which means she understands now. They didn't know about the door. Or the boy. Or the silent heartbreak. All they knew was that their son had returned to reality, their version of it. Amar was back in the picture. Plans were being made. An engagement dinner was scheduled. And the press release was already drafted. But Chike hadn't come home. Not really. He went through the motions. Took one meeting. Signed one document. Smiled once at Amara, and hated himself for it. Then he told Hugo, I need one last moment. One moment to do what? Hugo asked. To say goodbye. The next day, Chike wrote a letter. Then he walked back to the gate. No uniform. Just the man. He slid the envelope under Adeora's door and left before she could open it. Inside the letter, his handwriting trembled. You asked me if anything was real. The answer is yes. The bench was real. The book was real. Your son's smile was real. And the way I feel about you has never been more real. I didn't lie because I didn't care. I lied because I cared too much. Because I didn't think I deserved someone who looked at me like I was enough without the money. I don't want anything from you now. Not forgiveness. Not love. Just the chance to say, I'm sorry. And thank you. For seeing me. She didn't respond. Not that day. Not the next. Not even when the press posted a blurry photo of Chaik with Amara at a charity brunch, her hand casually on his shoulder. Eudora saw it. Ibuka saw it too. Is Uncle Obinna still our friend? He asked. Eudora didn't answer. She just folded the letter again and tucked it inside her notebook, right between the pages of The Little Prince. 2 weeks passed. The engagement was official. Chaik Obi, son of Chief Emeka Obi and heir to Obi Group, was set to marry Amara Adenuga, the poised daughter of a powerful senator. The papers had it. The blogs screamed it. The socialites reposted it with captions like, Power couple goals. Perfect match, wealth marries wealth. She said yes. They didn't know the truth. They didn't know about the gate. They didn't know about her. Eudora read the announcement at 5:42 a.m. on a Monday, the hour between quiet and chaos, when Ibuka was still asleep and the sun was only beginning to stretch. The headline stung. The photo stung more. Amara's manicured hand resting lightly on Chaik's shoulder. His fake smile. Her glinting diamond ring. Adeora's fingers trembled as she closed the tab. She didn't cry. But something inside her, something delicate and blooming, quietly folded shut. At breakfast, Ibuka said, Mummy, Uncle Obinna's on TV. Eudora took a deep breath. His real name is Chaik. Ibuka frowned. But I like Obinna. Eudora smiled faintly. So did I. Back at the Obi mansion, Chaik was a prisoner in designer chains. The family called it a celebration. He called it damage control. He sat beside Amara at the engagement brunch, smiling through clenched teeth, laughing when required. She was beautiful, polished, fluent in French and networking. But beneath the diamonds and curated grace was someone who never looked at him the way Eudora did, like she could see the war behind his eyes and still choose to stay. After the brunch, Hugo cornered Chaik in the hallway. You're miserable, he said bluntly. I know. She didn't come to the gate, Hugo added. But she still lives in your mind rent-free. I know. Then why are you marrying Amara? Chaik was quiet, then said, because it's easier than starting another war. But the real war wasn't in the media or the marriage. It was happening behind closed doors, in boardrooms and whispers. And it started with a betrayal. That evening, Hugo handed Chaik a folder. Look inside, he said grimly. Chaik opened it. Inside, screenshots, bank transactions, email threads. All leading back to one name. Martha. And one horrifying truth. She had been the one who tipped off the press about Chaik's location. She had hired a private investigator to follow him into Royal Vine Estate. She had leaked photos to the media of a billionaire playing Gateman, before Eudora ever closed the door. The viral headlines had been her doing. The fake smiles at the brunch now made sense. She hadn't just wanted Chaik's love. She wanted to own the version of him the world respected, and destroy the version she couldn't. Chaik felt sick. She knew about Eudora, he whispered. Hugo nodded. The moment she heard whispers about you and a single mother, she acted. Fast. Chaik closed the folder slowly. Then stood. I'm ending this. But he was too late. Because across town, in her modest apartment, Eudora had already packed her bags. Not because of the scandal. Not because of the engagement. But because she couldn't let her son grow up thinking that pretending to be someone else is the price of being chosen. She left a note with the estate manager. Thank you for your time at Royal Vine Estate. We're moving closer to my mother's place. Kindly forward final bills. No fanfare. No drama. Just a woman refusing to beg for the bare minimum, honesty. Chaik arrived at her door that same evening, sweating, folder in hand. He knocked. Twice. No answer. He peeked through the window. Empty. He asked the guard on duty. They moved out this morning, the man said. Gone before sunrise. Chaik nodded slowly, then sat on the pavement. For the first time in years, billionaire or not, he felt powerless. That night, Chaik returned to his room and opened his notebook. But this time, he didn't write a date. He just wrote her name. Over and over. Until the page tore. Across the city, Adaora and Ibuka sat in her mother's flat. Smaller, humbler, but full of warmth. Ibuka tugged her sleeve. Mummy, will I see Uncle Obina again? Adaora smiled weakly. Sometimes, love is about letting go, she whispered. He tilted his head. But, do we still love people when we let go? She kissed his forehead. Always. The morning started with headlines. Big ones. Loud ones. Billionaire heir cancels engagement to senator's daughter, leaves press confused. Breaking, Obi Groupso refuses to comment on Amara split. No wedding, he says coldly. Gateman rumors return. What is Chaik Obi hiding? Chaik stood at the podium of a press event meant to announce a merger deal. But instead of talking business, he did something no billionaire had done before. He told the truth. To the board, the media, and the public, he said clearly, I will not be marrying Amara Adenuga. Flashbulbs exploded. Murmurs spread like fire. I want to be clear. This is not a scandal. This is a choice. A personal one. I will not pretend for the sake of partnerships, photo ops, or family expectations. The room held its breath. And if that costs me a contract or a headline, so be it. And just like that, he stepped off the stage. Back home, Chief Obi hurled a glass across the room. You've embarrassed us. Lady Obi clutched her pearls. Do you know what this means for our standing? Chaik remained calm. I've been embarrassing myself for years, he replied. This is the first time I'm doing something honest. But what truly unraveled everything wasn't the engagement fallout. It was the video. Leaked anonymously. Clipped from estate CCTV. It showed a young woman standing beside a security gate, defending a man in uniform against a screaming Amara. If you can't speak with respect, Adaora had said, then don't speak at all. The video went viral in hours. Who is the woman who stood for the Gateman? Adaora, the voice that humbled the elite. And with it came new heat. Some bloggers praised her. Others mocked her. But for the first time, the public saw Adaora. And so did Chaik's enemies. At his office, his PR manager slid him a folder. We've traced the leak. It wasn't Amara this time. Then who? The manager hesitated. Your mother. Chaik stared blankly. She leaked the video herself, the manager said. To paint Adaora as dramatic. To imply she was a distraction that cost you your empire. Chaik drove across town that same night. Straight to the Obi mansion. No driver. No entourage. Just a man ready for war. He entered the family study without knocking. Lady Obi looked up from her wine glass, unbothered. You know, she said softly, I raised you better than to embarrass your name in front of the whole country. Chaik stepped closer. And I was raised better than to destroy a woman just to save face. Lady Obi's expression hardened. She would have ruined you. She saved me, Chaik snapped. From becoming you. Silence. Then, slowly Lady Obi rose to her feet. You think this is love? It's a phase. You'll outgrow it. No, Chaik said. I'm outgrowing this. All of it. Later that night, Chaik called Hugo. Help me find her, he said. Already tried, Hugo replied. She's off social media. No estate forwarding address. Disconnected her number. Even the market aunties don't know where she went. Chaik swallowed hard. Then I'll find her the old way. The next day, Chaik made a public appeal. Not in a press release. Not in a scandalous tweet. But in a full-page newspaper letter. Printed in ink. No filters. No PR gloss. Just this. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I didn't deserve your kindness. But you gave both anyway. I became a gateman looking for love. But you showed me something rarer, respect. Dignity. Silence that spoke louder than praise. I'm not asking you to come back. I'm asking you to know this. You are the first person who ever made me wish I could start over. Not as a billionaire, but as a man worth your time. If you see this, just know. I still carry the note you left tucked inside your notebook. Still trying to become the man you saw. The paper hit the streets by sunrise. And somewhere in a small apartment on the outskirts of Kubwa, Adaora's mother opened it. She read the letter. Then walked into the bedroom. Baby, she said softly, you need to see this. Adaora, still in her wrapper, still battling exhaustion, took the paper wordlessly. Her hands shook as she read. Ibuka peeked over her shoulder. Mummy, that's Uncle Obina's real name, right? Adaora didn't respond. But her eyes filled with tears. Quiet. Not dramatic. Not for show. Just the soundless ache of being seen again. The right way this time. That night, Chaik waited at the gate. Not as a billionaire. Not even as a man in love. But as someone who had finally learned how to wait without control. And hope without expectation. Evening in Abuja brought a hush. Not silence, but that peculiar calm that sits right before something breaks or blooms. Chaik stood by the estate gate. Same place he once kept watch. Only now, it wasn't a disguise. It was a memory. A reckoning. A place of origin and consequence. The sun was almost gone when a car pulled up slowly. He didn't turn. He felt her presence before he saw her. She stepped out. Simple dress. No makeup. Shoes slightly dusty from a long walk. And yet, she looked like justice. Adaora turned. Eyes locking. Time pausing. Then she spoke. I saw the letter. He nodded. Silence. She stepped closer. Each word deliberate. I didn't come here because of romance. I didn't come because of Ibuka. I came because I needed to say some things out loud. For myself. Chaik didn't interrupt. Didn't plead. Didn't reach for her hand. He simply listened. I loved Obina, she said. The humble man who cared about stories, who read with my son, who didn't flinch when the generator blew out or when the tomatoes were overpriced. That was me, Chaik whispered. No, Adaora snapped, pain sharp in her voice. That was a version of you. The safe version. The one who wouldn't risk rejection by being real. She drew a breath. You said you lied because you cared. But that lie stole my choice. My right to decide whether I could love you as you really were. Chaik's voice broke. I was scared. I was too, she fired back. I've been left before. Mocked before. I didn't let you in because you were perfect. I let you in because you were present. The pause. The beat. Then softer. But you weren't present, were you? Not really. You were performing. Chaik took a shaky step forward. No more performances. Adaora shook her head. You don't get to declare that now. He stopped. Her tone softened, not forgiving but clearer. You did what you thought was best. And maybe you meant well. But meaning well doesn't erase damage. Chaik lowered his eyes. I don't expect forgiveness. Good, she replied. Because I didn't come to give it. I came to say this. I am whole without you. I was whole before you. And I will be after. Her voice trembled. But you changed something in me. And I needed to face you to take it back. They stood there. Two people once entangled in secrets and soft laughter. Now separated by truth. No longer enemies. But not lovers either. Just witnesses to a love that tried and failed under the weight of fear. Then, as the sun finally dipped below the horizon, Adaora said, Take care of yourself, Chaik. She turned to leave. Wait, he called gently. Will I ever see you again? She paused. And smiled. Not out of affection. Out of release. I hope you see yourself again first. Then she walked away. This time, not in anger. But in power. Chaik stood there for a long time. Then opened his notebook. Day 50. She came. Not to rescue. Not to return. But to remind me who I've been, and who I still could become. Love, it turns out, doesn't always stay. Sometimes it teaches. Then leaves. Meanwhile, across town, Adaora tucked Ibuka into bed. He clutched his favorite book, The Little Prince. Mummy. Yes, baby. Do you miss Uncle Obena? She paused. Then kissed his forehead. Sometimes. But missing someone doesn't mean we need to go back. Ibuka thought for a moment. Will we be okay? She smiled gently. We already are. It had been 23 days since that final conversation. Since the gate. Since, I hope you see yourself again first. And Chaik did. But not in the way he expected. He stopped showing up at board meetings in suits tailored for intimidation. He started showing up in polos and sleeves rolled up. Listening. Learning. Delegating. He sold his custom Rolls-Royce. Donated the proceeds to a tech education fund for low-income girls. He hired more single mothers into his company. Promoted gatekeepers to internal security coordinators. Small, his mother muttered. Too small for headlines. But that was the point. No headlines. No grand gestures. No applause. Just work. The kind you do when no one is watching. The kind Ada Ora would have respected. Meanwhile, across town, Ada Ora's life was anything but quiet. Because the video of her defending the Gateman had gone fully viral again. But this time, not because of Chaik. This time, because a national news outlet picked it up and titled it, "The Woman Who Spoke Truth to Power and Didn't Flinch." The internet pounced. Some called her a heroine. Some said she was stupid. Others accused her of clout chasing, saying she had known Chaik's identity all along. Typical gold digger plot, one blog wrote. She's the reason he ended the engagement, another claimed. She ruined everything. Ada Ora was stunned. I didn't even speak to the press, she told her mother. You became a symbol, Mama replied. Symbols don't get to explain themselves. It got worse. Paparazzi at Ibuka's school. Bloggers knocking on her aunt's door. Job offers disguised as interview bait. One TV host even said, "We'll pay you 5 million Nigerian nairas for a 1-hour sit-down. Just tell us how you seduced the billionaire in disguise." Ada Ora hung up. Blocked the number. But the damage was done. She lost a tailoring client who didn't want drama around the brand. Ibuka came home crying after a schoolmate said, "Your mummy makes rich men cry." Ada Ora shut off her phone for 3 days. Not because she was afraid, but because she was tired. On the 4th day, a letter arrived. No signature. Just a card. You don't owe anyone your story. The people who matter already know the truth. See? She stared at it for a long time. Then tucked it into the back of her notebook. Right behind the original note she wrote when she left Royal Vine. Sometimes dignity is louder than goodbye. Elsewhere, Chaik watched the chaos unfold. He had told his team to let the storm pass. But one headline made him snap. Single mother who lured billionaire now turns down 5 million Nigerian nairas offer. Who does she think she is? Chaik called his media officer. Buy that outlet, he said flatly. Sir? Buy it? Fire the editor. Issue a retraction. Replace it with a piece about Ada Ora's business. I want her craft, not her scandal, to trend. The officer stammered, You can't control the whole internet. I'm not trying to, Chaik said. I'm just fixing what I broke. That same week, Ada Ora received an unexpected feature. A women's magazine had published a spread titled, Quiet Strength, the seamstress who said no to noise. It focused on her craft, her process, her resilience, not the romance, not the scandal. It was a respectful. She smiled for the first time in weeks. That evening, Ibuka tugged her sleeve. Mummy? Yes, love. Can I help you stitch this time? She nodded. Together, they worked in silence. A mother, a son, a small apartment filled with fabric, thread, and something harder to name, but stronger than both. Elsewhere, Chaik walked through a construction site his company was funding. It would become a community library and tech hub. No plaques, no name, no press. Just impact. A worker asked, Sir, who's it named after? Chaik smiled. No one. Just call it the Quiet Gate. It was a Saturday. Clouds hung low, like they were watching. A quiet breeze moved through Kubwa as families gathered for the grand opening of a new community library and tech hub. There were no celebrity hosts. No champagne. Just a banner. The quiet gate, a space to grow. A space to learn. Kids ran around barefoot, tugging balloons. Mothers browsed the donated bookshelves. Teenagers tapped away on computers they'd never touched before. And in one corner, volunteers were stitching custom cloth name patches for every child in attendance. That's where Adora sat. Unpaid. Unseen. Unbothered. Helping out because someone from the neighborhood committee had begged her. She didn't even know who funded the space. All she knew was, Ibuka liked the idea of books and free Wi-Fi. He tugged her sleeve. "Mummy, can I go in now?" Adora looked up. "Take off your shoes at the door." Ibuka grinned. "I love this place already." He ran off, leaving her surrounded by thread, fabric, and quiet hums of chatter. Chike arrived 30 minutes late. Baseball cap. Plain tee. No one noticed him. That was the point. He didn't want recognition. He just wanted to see it. To feel it. The first public project he'd done not to impress a boardroom, but to honor someone who walked away. He nodded to a staffer who whispered, "All on schedule, sir." He made his way inside, and froze. Because there, near the east wall, sat a woman. Bent over cloth. Helping a young girl sew her name. Adora. For a moment he thought about turning around. Leaving. Letting the moment pass. But then a small voice yelled, "Uncle Obina." Ibuka. He ran up to Chike and hugged him without hesitation. "I knew you were behind this," he laughed. "This place is so cool." Chike knelt, stunned. You remember me?" Ibuka rolled his eyes. "I'm not a baby, uncle." Then, as if fate had planned it, he grabbed Chike's hand and pulled him. "Come say hi to Mummy." Adora saw them approaching. And for a moment, her fingers stopped sewing. Time slowed. Not out of fear. Not even out of heartbreak. But out of that strange, silent feeling of, "So we meet again." Chike stopped 2 feet away. "Hi," he said softly. Adora stared. "Ibuka, why don't you check out the tablet station?" Ibuka grinned. "Can I?" She nodded. He ran, leaving behind a quiet tension. Not thick, just unfinished. Chike broke it first. "I didn't know you'd be here." "I didn't know you were behind this," she replied. "The beat. It's beautiful," she added, eyes scanning the space. "Thank you," he said. "Why'd you help today?" Zora shrugged. "Because kids deserve more than excuses." Chike smiled faintly. "That's why I built it." Another pause. Not awkward, just careful. Then Adora looked at him. Really looked. "You seem lighter." He nodded. "Trying to earn that." Adora held his gaze. Then glanced down. "I read the article. About the sewing grant you're starting for single mothers." He chuckled. "Wasn't supposed to be public yet." "It is now." The pause. "You're doing good work," she said. "You inspired it." They stood there. 2 people no longer trying to rewrite the past. Just sharing the present. And for a flicker of a moment, they smiled at the same time. Later, as the event ended, Ibuka came running again. "Mummy, Uncle Obina said I can borrow books every week." Adora raised an eyebrow at Chike. "Is that true?" He shrugged. "Only if he promises to return them." "I promise." Ibuka beamed. He looked at his mum. "Can we come next Saturday?" Adora glanced at Chike. Then back at her son. "We'll see," she said gently. And for now, that was enough. That night, Chike returned to his apartment. He opened his notebook. Day 74. "I saw her again. Not as mine. Just as her." She smiled. "I didn't expect that. Maybe hope isn't about getting things back. Maybe it's about learning to be ready, if they ever return willingly." Across town, Adora folded Ibuka's clothes. Found his borrowed book tucked into his bag. She smiled. Not because of Chike, but because her son was learning. And so, she realized, was she. It began with a cough. Just a small one. Hardly noticeable. Probably dust from the books, Adora told herself, patting Ibuka's back as he curled up on the couch with his latest read from the quiet gate. But by nightfall, the cough turned into a fever. And by morning, Ibuka could barely stand. She rushed him to the nearest public hospital. Crowded. understaffed, long queues. He whimpered softly, resting his head on her lap. Mummy, I feel like I'm floating. She blinked fast, held his hand tighter. Don't worry, baby. We're here now. The doctor looked over the chart, then the lab results, then pulled Adaora aside. He's severely anemic. But what worries me more is the irregular heartbeat. He needs pediatric cardiology review. And fast. Adaora's chest tightened. How fast? The doctor hesitated. A week, max, preferably less. But, he sighed, the next appointment available through public referral is in 6 weeks. Her voice cracked. Then I'll pay. Privately. He looked at her. Quietly. Do you have 700,000 Nigerian nairas? Adaora froze. She had 42,000 Nigerian nairas in her account, and 11,000 Nigerian nairas in her tailoring shop's drawer. She left the hospital in a daze. She couldn't cry, couldn't panic, couldn't even scream. Until she found herself outside the quiet gate. The place where Ibuka smiled the widest. And the place where, as fate would have it, Chike was inside. He saw her before she said a word. And when he did, he stood instantly. Is it Ibuka? She nodded once. That's all it took. Within an hour, they were back at the hospital. With Chike speaking quietly to the head administrator. With papers flying. Payments wired. With Ibuka being transferred to a private wing. White sheets, working AC, and specialists waiting. Adaora sat at the edge of the hospital bed, watching her son's chest rise and fall, steadier now. The doctor came in. We'll monitor him overnight, but he's stable. Thank God you brought him when you did. Adaora nodded. Thank you, she whispered. But she wasn't looking at the doctor. She was looking at Chike. Later, in the hallway, she finally asked, Why didn't you hesitate? He shrugged. He's our son. She froze. He's not your son, Chike. Chike stepped closer. No. But he's the reason I became a better man. So maybe that makes him something more. Adaora blinked. He continued. Do you want me to leave? She didn't answer immediately. Then softly, No. Not tonight. The hours passed in soft tension. Shared silence. Gentle updates from nurses. At some point, Adaora fell asleep in the chair beside the hospital bed. And Chike, without thinking, removed his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. Then he sat across from them. And watched. A boy. A woman. A life he once pretended to earn. Now, simply grateful to witness. In the middle of the night, Ibuka stirred. Mummy, he whispered. Chike stood up. She's sleeping. But I'm here. Ibuka smiled faintly. You still love my mummy? Chike blinked. Then knelt beside the bed. Yes. I do. Ibuka closed his eyes. She still dreams about you sometimes. Then drifted back to sleep. That morning, when Adaora woke up, Chike was still there. Coffee in one hand. A quiet expression on his face. They didn't speak right away. They didn't need to. Finally she said, I hated you. I know. I still don't trust you. I understand. But, her voice softened, I saw something yesterday. The way you stayed. The way you didn't boast or pretend. You were just here. I'll always be here, he said quietly. A nurse entered. Ibuka's test results are encouraging. You caught it early. Adaora sighed in relief. The nurse turned to Chike. Sir, are you the father? Chike and Adaora both froze. Then slowly she answered for him. He's family. For 2 days, Ibuka grew stronger. The boy who once coughed himself to sleep now laughed at cartoons. He asked for jollof rice. He asked to go home. And once, when the nurse came to check his he whispered, My mummy is smiling again. Chike watched from the side. He wasn't in control. He wasn't trying to be. He was just present. A jacket on the back of a chair. A silent second opinion during doctor updates. A man who knew he had once caused pain, and now wanted only to bring peace. On the 3rd day, as the rains fell over Abuja in slow, curtain-like waves, Adaora stepped out onto the hospital balcony. Chike joined her a few minutes later. They stood side by side. No umbrella. Just quiet drizzle. No storm. No thunder. Just that soft, honest kind of rain that makes people tell the truth. I thought about calling you, she said quietly. When? After the article. When the gossip blog stopped. When I finally had room to think again. Chike said nothing. Just waited. Adaora continued. But I didn't call. Because I was afraid of starting something I couldn't finish. Chike looked down. You don't owe me anything. She nodded. I know. Then, after a moment, she added. But that doesn't mean I don't want to give something, freely. She turned to face him. For a long time I thought you tricked me. I did, he said honestly. But I also tricked myself, she said, into thinking I was only lovable if someone struggled beside me. That if a man had wealth, he'd never understand me. She looked out into the rain again. I see now that struggle isn't the only currency for trust. Chike looked at her carefully and asked, not boldly but vulnerably, would you ever let me try again? She took a deep breath. I don't know. His chest tightened. Adaora stepped forward, placing something in his hand. He opened it. It was a sewn name patch, like the ones she'd made for the children at the quiet gate. But this one said, Obina. Chike's breath caught. Adaora smiled softly. I made this the day we met. The very first day. You helped Ibuka pick a mango from the tree, remember? He said you should stay forever. Chike laughed quietly. I remember. She looked at him. Not as a beggar. Not as a billionaire. Not even as a broken promise. But as a man. A man who stayed. Take it, she said. Not as a symbol. Not as an invitation. Just something to remind you that there was once a version of us that was good. And worth remembering. He nodded slowly. Held the patch like a prayer. I will. They returned inside. The rain still falling. Ibuka was drawing with crayons. He looked up and grinned. Mummy, Uncle Obina, come look. They joined him. 3 heads bent over a scribbled picture. A house. A garden. A man. A woman. And a boy. Who's this? Chike asked, pointing to the stick figures. Ibuka shrugged. Just drawing what I wish for. Adaora and Chike exchanged a glance. But neither spoke. Because the wish had been spoken. And some things are too fragile to touch with words. That night, Chike walked to his car. Before he opened the door, Adaora called out softly. Next Saturday, there's a book reading for children at the library. You should come. Ibuka would like it. Chike smiled. Would you like it? Adaora didn't answer. Just smiled. Then closed the hospital door behind her. Later, alone in his apartment, Chike opened his notebook. Day 77. She gave me a name patch. Not a promise. Not a reset button. Just proof that once I was chosen. That's enough for now. Maybe love isn't about begging to return. Maybe it's about being worthy, if ever invited back. Saturday arrived. The sky over Abuja was painted in soft gold and fading blue. Children gathered in clusters at the quiet gate library, bouncing in excitement. The book reading was about to begin. And at the back of the room, sitting beside Ibuka, was Chike. He wasn't wearing designer clothes. Just a white shirt, sleeves rolled. A familiar watch. And a smile that said, I'm not here for attention. I'm here because I was invited. Adaora arrived 10 minutes later. Simple ochre blouse. Hair tied back. No makeup. No statement. Just presence. The kind that filled a room without needing noise. When she saw Chike beside Ibuka, she didn't flinch. She nodded. And Chike smiled. A gentle one. No pressure. No expectations. After the reading, the children were given snacks and crayons to draw the story they'd heard. Ibuka drew a new version of his usual picture. A woman. A man. A boy. A gate. And this time a key floating above it. As the event wrapped up, Adaora stepped out for air. Chike followed. They stood again under that same tree where they'd first truly spoken. Where he once pretended to be Obina, the gateman. Now no pretense. Just Chike Obi. And a woman who had nothing to prove. Thank you for coming, she said. Thank you for letting me. He hesitated. I know this isn't the moment for declarations. But there's something I need you to know. She waited. Chaik took a breath. I will never stop respecting your silence. Or your voice. Or the distance you chose. Even if this, he gestured gently between them, never becomes what it once tried to be. I will always protect the gate between us. Edoora blinked. Why? Because you taught me that some gates don't open with force. They open with trust. She looked at him. Really looked. Then reached into her bag and pulled out a brown envelope. Inside, a sketch. A design she had drawn long ago but never completed. A two-piece men's agbada set, modern cut, elegant lines. Why are you giving me this? He asked. Because if I ever open a proper shop one day, she said softly, this will be my first male collection. She paused. And I want it to carry your name. Chaik held the sketch like it was glass. Then looked up at her. And for the first time in months, he didn't ask for more. No reunion. No romance. Can I walk you home? She smiled. I don't live far. He fell into step beside her. They walked in silence through the neighborhood. The streets alive with music and late afternoon market noise. And somewhere along the way, Chaik took off his watch, that expensive one, gold-trimmed, and handed it to a teenage boy selling groundnuts. Here, he said. Use it wisely. The boy gasped. Sir? But Chaik was already walking. Edoora glanced at him. You always give things away like that? He shrugged. Only when they no longer define me. She said nothing. But her hand brushed his. Accidentally. Maybe not. Neither pulled away. When they reached her gate, she stopped. This is it. He nodded. I know. The pause. Then Chaik said, I'm not asking to come in. She smiled. Good. Because I wasn't offering. Another pause. But softer this time. More complete. She reached for the gate. Then turned back. Obina. He looked up, surprised. You called me. She cut him off, gently. I just wanted to say, if this had started differently. He nodded. But it didn't, he finished. And maybe that's okay. She smiled. Then added, but if it ever starts again, it won't be through this gate. She pointed to her heart. It'll be through this one. Chaik stood still. Watched as she walked inside. Watched as the gate clicked shut. But this time, it didn't sound like an ending. It sounded like a pause. A comma. Not a full stop. Turned. Walked away. Lighter than he had ever been. Not because he got her back. But because he finally understood. Some stories are not fairy tales. They're folk tales. Told around fire. About men who wear masks. And women who see through them. And boys who draw homes with keys hanging over the gates.